This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV, and we're very pleased to be joined today by OJ Irgens to discuss the Corvus Marine battery solution in the context of Seacor Marine's increased hybridization of its fleet. OJ, we had a great interview with Tim Clerc, the VP of Engineering of Seacor Marine, recently in the January edition of Maritime Reporter on the company's push to hybridize its fleet, and he discussed the importance of batteries as central to the effort, specifically the Corvus Orca battery modules and the Lighthouse system. To start us off, can you give our viewers an overview of the Corvus battery solutions to the marine industry today?
Yes, thanks for that, Greg. I'll answer that in the context of what we've done with Seacor over the years. So Corvus has been developing and delivering batteries for 14 years now, in fact, and Seacor was one of the early customers for the Orca battery. The thing with battery technology is that it is evolving very quickly. So we are constantly kind of improving our batteries. So that's a challenge because, we can't reinvent the wheel every time. So what we have focused on these latter years is to standardize the basic principles of the product so that if there are new cell technologies or small improvements, we can implement those without changing the whole product. And that has really given us an edge, I think, and kept us in the pole position in the battery market. Now we still need quite a variations of different battery products because the applications are so varied. So on a very simple high level, you could say that there's batteries that are there to give power at an instant, or batteries that you can discharge at a rapid pace with a so-called high C rate. And then you have batteries where the optimal application is more to store energy or more energy over a longer time. So you have to optimize the batteries against what it's going to be used for in that sense. So for the type of vessels that Seacor has, you could say there's three main applications. And the most common one, and the ones that is, I would say, probably the basis for using batteries for Seacor is what we call peak shaving. So peak shaving is when you supplement the power from the engines by the use of batteries to take the power peaks. And when you do that, you can optimize the performance of the engines, which operate best at a stable high load. So instead then of having, let's say, a second, third, fourth generator started, you can use the batteries for when you need that extra power. So that means optimization of the engines, which again then means lower fuel consumption, thereby lower emissions, and also reduced maintenance cost. So that's another important factor here, that there is actually a positive business case for operators like Seacor to utilize batteries. It's not just about reducing fuel and emissions, but it's also to reduce maintenance cost, and that's a big factor. Another application typical with the offshore type fleet vessels, that especially if they have DP, is to use the batteries as a spinning reserve. So that basically means that you can, instead of having a spare engine running or having a spare engine that you have to ramp up, you have that battery source there as redundant power. And of course, the advantage with batteries also is that they give you immediate power. So whereas there's no ramp up period. So it also has a safety aspect. And then a third application that I think Tim is looking at for the future with the Seacor fleet is what we call when you want to operate the vessel in zero emission mode, then you go fully on batteries. So then you need, a different application in the sense that you need maybe constant power over certain periods. So then it's not a peak, it's more a stable load. So when it comes to, what do we do? What's our added value in this? Well, so we don't make the battery cells. What we do is we put together the battery systems. So we are a system provider, but of course we are a system provider of battery systems. So always when we deliver a battery system to a ship, there is an interface to the whole power management system on board the vessel. And that's typically delivered and put together by an electrical integrator. A company like Kongsberg, ABB, Wärtsilä, and Tim's work very closely with Kongsberg on these ships. So we have a close collaboration with Kongsberg to make everything work. And then the lighthouse system that you mentioned, that is you could say it's like the portal that takes data from the monitoring of the batteries on board, and it puts it into a customer interface portal that Seacor can access to look at the state of their batteries and use maybe the data to improve their own performance. And for us, of course, it's very useful because we can look at that across a fleet of vessels and do some comparisons and kind of track how our batteries perform over time.
I appreciate the background and you covering the breadth of what batteries can be used for on board, because one of the important things that I think Tim said in our interview is, he said, don't just put batteries on your vessels to put batteries on your vessels, know what you want to do with them. And I guess my question is, this is still an emerging technology for many. Do you still see a little confusion in the marketplace, whether that be with ship owners or shipbuilders, as to what exactly they want batteries to do when they put them on board?
Yes, definitely. So I think that there's definitely an element of learning and getting the crews on board and the chief engineers and so on comfortable with batteries. So there's that kind of comfort level. So training is going to be key. And we found that also with Seacor that, the crews that had the most experience with operating the batteries were also utilizing them the most. And with that kind of dialogue, we can help improve that situation. So I think that's very important. And that collaboration between Seacor, but Kongsberg, Corvus is critical. So there has to be that trust level and exchange of information.
So I'll let you use the metrics of your choice, but can you give us kind of a by the numbers look specifically regarding the relationship with Seacor? So
yeah, I'll keep that fairly short. It's as I said, Seacor was one of the early adopters of the Orca battery. I think, I don't remember the year top of my head, so we can perhaps check that later, but I think it's 9 vessels now that has a system installed. Some of them have been delivered as new builds with the system, and some have been upgraded. They're all around about 500 kilowatt hours, the system size, small variations. The profiles of these vessels are fairly similar, so the usage is also similar. And as I said, they use the batteries for peak shaving or load leveling, as they might call it as well. Lighthouse, all these vessels have the lighthouse system, and we had a workshop with Tim's team. I think it's 3 months ago now. So what we did there was basically we ran an analysis of each of the vessels on how the batteries have been used over time. If we saw any, high temperatures or any deviations from the profiles that had been provided. And then we sat down together and kind of made a plan. And
you touched on a little bit earlier, this isn't just about hardware. It's just not about putting equipment on boats, letting it set sail and saying sayonara, but it's about an ongoing relationship. And something that you said previously kind of struck with me, in that it's obviously the digitalization trend is pervasive in maritime today, and the more information that you get from your vessels but actually put to use is going to ultimately be to your benefit. So can you just dig a little deeper? Aside from the hardware, can you describe the type of ongoing technical support and partnership that you forge with Seacor to ensure that this technology, which, as we discussed, is still somewhat new in the marine sector, is designed, installed, and operated with maximum efficiency?
Yeah. So I might be repeating myself a bit, but I think that it's not enough just to have that kind of trust level on the engineering side and the ship design side and so on, as we have with Tim. And we have to go deeper. And what we found is that a lot more can be done with the data that's available. We have to put that data into use in improving the the competency level, both on our side but also on the operating team side, on the crew side. We have to, the data has to be also interpreted. So even though these battery systems are very low maintenance dependent, I mean, there's really not that much maintenance you have to do on a battery system. It's more, to supervise it because for safety reasons and so on. But we find that the data is not enough. It is useful to do some type of regular inspections on the systems as well. So that's something that we will look at. And again, we need to make that cost efficient. So the more we can train the crew and the Seacor's own superintendents, etc., the better, so they can do a lot themselves. Another thing we have been discussing with Tim a bit is that, to make, again, back to this kind of investment case, to make it easier, is there somewhere where we could find a place where Corvus could play a part in actually in the investment of the batteries themselves through some kind of leasing system or that we have a service agreement where they pay for the usage of the batteries rather than the batteries themselves. That's something we're looking at. So these are strategies that tie well into what Corvus is trying to be and become in the future. And
I know that Corvus has been investing in battery production in the US. Can you give our viewers an update on the capacity, when it will come online, and provide an overview of the opportunity that you see here in North America specifically?
So what's important to remember is that Corvus was a Canadian startup out of Vancouver. So, we've had a presence in North America for a long time, but of course, to really penetrate the US market, and also with some of the, Buy American, etc. type regulations, we saw the need to do something in the US as well. So basically what we did is we took an existing production line that we had in Vancouver. We moved it across the border to Bellingham, Washington, where we got a good deal on the building in the port of Bellingham. A nice facility that had been used for electronic production previously. And we set that up in a matter of months. It's been now operational for a few months, so we have had our first deliveries. And we'll have a grand opening in later in January this year. We will have in that facility, I think by end of this year, there will be about 20 people, so 20 US jobs created from that. Production volume, we're going to ramp it up, so it's very scalable. So at the moment, we primarily only deliver to the North American market from that facility, and we have some Asian deliveries as well. We can do, I think it is 7,000 modules with the current production plan, which is 35, 40 megawatt hours. But as I said, we can double the shifts and double that capacity. So the plan is to see now this next couple of years how the market evolves. It's looking really promising. So I'm happy to share that we're already looking at kind of the next step investments that we would like to do in this market as it grows. We have also invested more in Vancouver, so we also have, we have two actually manufacturing facilities now covering North America, but we are looking at further investments, and but we do see a huge growth potential in the US now. It is. I mean, I've been here working in this market for a while, but I would say now, we're at the turning point now, because you can see the oil companies starting to really invest. There's a lot of infrastructure projects which are enablers for this. There's a lot happening in offshore wind. So we're really excited to see how far we can take this in the next few years.